So we have yet another edition of Americans realizing just how strange the USA is after living or traveling abroad. Without further ado, let's get into this first video. Reverse culture shocks moving back to the US.
I've been living back home in the US for a month now, and these are reverse culture shock things that I didn't think I would be surprised because I obviously am from the US. I'm from a really rural, small town, and I never really considered how nice everyone is here until I moved back. Like, I go to the grocery store and people are just saying hi to me just to say hi, or someone walks by me in the aisle and they say, "Excuse me." And or the cashier is like actually talking to you, and they're also not chucking your things at the end of like the little area. And I'm like racing to pack my bags because that literally would happen in Spain, and I literally would have anxiety standing in line.
Okay, so I definitely relate to her point about them just throwing your stuff to the end of the little checkout area. But personally, how I circumvented this was by using the self-checkout. And I think everything that she said up to this point in the video, I understand how maybe if you're an extrovert, that could be a bit of a relief coming from Europe. Although I honestly would have assumed that people in Spain are a little more outgoing, but maybe it's more of a language barrier thing. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But what I actually found out is the best way to circumvent that issue of them just kind of throwing your groceries and trying to pack them all in and not put the eggs at the bottom, things like that, is you take all your groceries, you put them back in the cart as they scan them. You put them back in the cart, and then you pay, and then you take your cart over to a separate area where you then bag at your own pace. I don't know why that never occurred to me, but I guess, again, I just used the self-checkout. And honestly, I don't know if they have this in Spain, but in the Netherlands, they had this thing. I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but they had this self-scanner thing where you can scan the groceries as you go, and then you take it to the self-checkout, you put the little scanner back in the scanning section thing, and then you use your card, you use your little grocery store card, you scan that, and you're good. And you pay, and you leave. And for me, coming from the US, that was mind-blowing. You do not understand how mind-blowingly futuristic that seemed to me. Granted, as I traveled more throughout the US, I did end up seeing that one time in one grocery store throughout the whole entire US. I saw that one time, but in Albert Heijn at least, and I think even at Jumbo in the Netherlands, that is generally the standard, and I really, really like that.
At the register, the trucks are ginormous. Obviously, I knew that like the size of cars in the US, or just like the size of things in the US, are more like they're large. But seeing an extra large truck drive around, I'm just like, this is so unnecessary.
Exactly. Look, to each their own. If you want to spend your money on a large truck, then go for it. My issue with that is when cities, states, or even the country overall begin to cater to people who want to have those large trucks. If you want to navigate that large truck through a reasonably sized road, then that's on you. But to me, I feel like they shouldn't make the roads wide enough for those trucks just because some people choose to have those trucks. Because I like to think of the fridge theory, that's what I like to call it at least, where a lot of people think, oh, my fridge is too small, I don't have enough space in my fridge. So they go and get a bigger fridge. And then all of a sudden, a year or two later, they say, wow, this fridge is too small as well, I need an even bigger fridge. Not realizing that they are buying more stuff just so that they can fill up that fridge. And I like to think that that's kind of what's going on in the US. Of course, there are other factors such as induced demand from the auto manufacturers, especially when it comes to those SUVs. Whole different discussion for a whole different day. But just know that it's not a coincidence that Americans desire those cars. But I also think that because the infrastructure essentially encourages it, and then you have the car manufacturers marketing it nonstop and basically establishing larger vehicles as status symbols, it's no wonder that Americans favor larger cars. But aside from the people who drive those literal monster trucks, the average person just drives a bigger car because most people in the EU are driving hatchbacks. And realistically, that's much more practical. People buy these trucks just so that they can haul a refrigerator once every 5 years because, again, fridge theory, they always need a new fridge to get more food. It's insane. People will spend $100,000 on a truck just so they can haul something once every 5 years when you can literally just rent a truck for a day for probably $50 to $100. And I mean, you can save thousands of dollars and just drive a regular car. I don't know.
And it almost just feels like laughable looking at a man drive by in a truck. Having to whip out my physical card because they didn't have tap at like a store, I just thought that was so bizarre. And I'm not trying to sound pick me when I
So as far as the whole tap thing, I'm not gonna lie, this is how I know the US is behind. Because when I saw my girlfriend literally just paying with her phone, I was like, what is she doing? Now, I'm not saying they don't have that in the US, but generally the default way of paying is going to be with a physical card. The US is definitely behind when it comes to payment technology, which is very ironic because the US is probably, no, I wouldn't even say probably, it is definitely the most consumerist society on the planet. So you would think that there would be no friction at the point of purchase. Gotta love America.
say this, but it sounded so weird to me to say thank you, and because it was 2 words, like saying thank you 2 words and not saying thank you in Spanish, saying gracia, because I don't know, if I didn't speak to anyone for a whole day, I at least was saying thank you like every single day because my Spanish was really bad. So if I wasn't saying anything, I was saying thank you to someone. And so that was the thing I was saying most in Spanish, and then to switch it back, the 2 words it just felt like foreign to say.
I'm so glad that she brought that up because that was actually my biggest linguistic reverse culture shock that I experienced myself. Was I never really realized how frequently I was saying dankjewel in the Netherlands until I got back to the US, and I realized that my mind defaulted to dankjewel. And mind you, I was only there for 14 months, but probably after 5 or 6 months, dankjewel became my default response. Even to this day, I don't tell my girlfriend thank you. I say dankjewel because it just feels more natural for me. So it's kind of strange that being in a place for 14 months could override the linguistic momentum you developed over, 23, 24 years? But the human brain is a very, very intriguing machine.
Thank you in 2 words. I also, on like day 3 of being back home, this is not culture shock, but being like day 3 or 4 being back home, I went and walked up to my grandma and I tried to give her 2 kisses on the cheeks because she went in for like a kiss, just like close to your face, like just being nice to me. And I went, and I was like, I did not just do that because I don't do that. I hated when people would kiss me on both cheeks when I was in Spain. Okay, to be honest,
So I didn't know that was even a thing in Spain. I did not know that was a thing in Spain. I know in the Netherlands they have the 3 kisses, but I never actually saw anyone do that. I never saw anyone do the 3 kisses. Maybe it's just the people that I interacted with personally, but just never saw that. Maybe it's more of a generational thing as well. But it seems like the tradition is very much alive in Spain.
2 were the biggest culture shocks, and I can't think of anything else, but go USA, mainly because I'm in California.
Okay, so she's in California. The experience being in California is fairly different to the experience being in Texas. So however many large trucks she's seeing in California, I probably saw about 3 times as many. And when they say everything is bigger in Texas, they are not lying. On to the next video. POV, you're back in the US after living in Europe and everyone asks why your phone is in military time. Yeah, this right here, I'm not gonna lie, and it's muted because copyright, but this right here is something that, I think I mentioned this in a recent video, but I feel like it's not even the fact that other countries use military time, and I'm saying other countries, I'm in another country, I'm in Vietnam, and I'm pretty sure they use military time, which is just a regular 24-hour clock. But the interesting thing is, it seems like in some places, when you ask someone what the time is, they will give you the 24-hour time. So they will say it's 17 o'clock. But in the places I went to, that was not the case. So I might have asked this in that video as well, but let me know in the comments what the cultural custom is where you live in regards to telling people the time after 12 o'clock. Because I always just assumed that people just quickly did the mental math and they knew that 17 is 5. But I don't really know. I think something that shocked me even more than this, actually, coming back from Europe, and really this was more so when I went to Europe, was realizing that the US, you might not know this by the way, but in the US, the week starts on Sunday. In Europe, the week starts on Monday. This blew my mind. I remember my girlfriend and I, we were having this whole debate about this. And I pulled up my phone calendar. I was like, see, it starts on Sunday. And I thought I had won the debate. And then she pulls up her phone calendar, and sure enough, her phone calendar showed the week starting on Monday. So that's when I knew, okay, these places are just different. They are just completely different in many, many different ways. And I mean, I guess neither of us was technically right or wrong. I later found out that you can actually change the starting day of the week in your phone calendar settings. So you can have the week start on Thursday if you want. But let me know if that's just an American thing or if they do that in your country as well, where the week starts on Sunday. On to the next video, USA reverse culture shock.
I'm an American living abroad and I'm visiting my family over the holidays. And one of the biggest, I guess, reverse culture shocks for me that gets me every time when I come back here is American friendliness. This was like my third time going to this Trader Joe's, and there's this greeter that we've seen a couple of times.
Okay, so the greeter, that is something that I never saw in Europe. If you don't know what a greeter is, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's someone whose whole job is to sit in front of the door or right inside of the door when you enter a store and greet you. And usually it's an older person, I guess, because the whole social security system in the US is kind of, well, weak. Those people just need the extra money, and that's a fairly easy job to do. But let me tell you, as an introvert, when I worked at PacSun, I had to do this. PacSun, if you don't know, is a clothing store. And when I worked at that clothing store, there would be times where the manager would put me in the front zone, which basically meant I had to stand in front of the entrance and tell people, hi, welcome in. And I hated that so much. I was making $7.25 an hour to do this. And honestly, every time they put me there, I would kind of just not do it. I would just stand there. I would act like I was folding clothes. I would unfold clothes just so that I could fold them again. I keep doing that. The manager would notice. He'd come over to me. Hey, you have to greet everyone. Okay, I'll try. And then I would greet people and they wouldn't even respond. And it was like, okay, why are we wasting money? Why are we wasting resources on this task? And wouldn't you know, that PacSun is now permanently closed down. Coincidence or not? I don't know. I do know. But, oh my gosh, that is the absolute worst. And as a consumer, I don't even like that. I don't want people to greet me. I don't want the pressure of having people just circling around me. I noticed they do that here in Southeast Asia as well, Thailand and Vietnam. It's like I understand the sentiment and I appreciate the help, but if I need help, I'll come to you. You focus on doing whatever it is you're doing and let me focus on what I'm doing. And if I need your help, I'll come to you. But the people that she's talking about, they literally just greet. That's their only job. They're not loss prevention. All right. An 80-year-old is not stopping anyone from stealing from the store. They're not cleaning anything. They literally just sit there in a chair or on a stool and welcome you in. It's crazy.
And he says, hey, I haven't seen you guys in a while. And we were just away for a week, but it was just so nice that he noticed and chatted a bit about our weekend. But this was such a lovely, welcoming interaction. Like, this would never happen in France or Istanbul or like Korea. And even just this concept of greeters, like a lot of places have security guards and stuff, but not people just there to say hello, especially in places like grocery stores. And I know a lot of like non-Americans don't really like this kind of stuff. They see it as really fake, but I love it.
Okay, so she must be more of an extrovert. She must be more of an extrovert than I am because, again, personally, as a consumer and as a worker, I just see it as a waste of time and energy. Now, as she was talking, I kind of had this epiphany about why this is primarily an American thing. I think a big part of the reason why, it's actually two different factors. For starters, America is a car-centric place. So especially in California, in Texas, in Florida, everywhere in between, pretty much everywhere outside of the Northeast, so Boston, New York, etc., where that greeter culture is not nearly as prominent, by the way, not a coincidence, and maybe the Pacific Northwest. I haven't been there before, so I can't really comment on that. But as far as pretty much all of the US that was developed after the advent of the automobile, you see this. And it's because people spend so much time isolated in their cars that they're craving any and all human interaction. I feel like in Europe, because you're around people so much, you can't go a whole day. If you live in a city of over, I would say 10,000 people in the EU, you can't go a whole day without seeing anyone. If you leave your house, that is. In the US, I might see people, but I'm seeing them from my car. So I can go a whole day without interacting with a single person at all. And that's even if I leave the house. So I think that's a big part of the reason why is people are just socially deprived in general. But I also think that there's the customer comes first mentality, which again, I've also noticed that to be the case here in Southeast Asia. But at the very least here, I see more people out and about. So maybe people aren't as socially deprived, hence why you don't have greeter culture here, from what I've observed at least. You'll have people who will basically just, I don't want to say attack you, but as soon as you go in the store, they will approach you out here. They're going to approach you. They'll even follow you around the store. And they'll ask if you need help, so on and so forth. But as far as people just standing at the door greeting you, that's not something I've seen anywhere outside of the US.